I'm Dr. Aaron Lorelei, and I'd like to welcome you to the last talk in our 2013-2014 Six Wolfgang series. And this afternoon, we are very excited to welcome Dr. Betsy Diamant-Cohen to deliver the Wolfgang talk. Dr. Diamant-Cohen is the creator of the early literacy program, Mother Goose on the Loose. In 2004, she was named by Library Journal as a mover and a shaker, and just last year, she received the Leadership and Professional Achievement Award from the Association of Specialized and Cooperative Library Agencies. She also has years of experience working in libraries and children's museums, and runs training workshops and presents courses through colleges and library associations. And this afternoon, she's going to be talking about purposeful play programs as part of early literacy strategies at public libraries. So let's please welcome Dr. Betsy Diamant-Cohen.
Thank you. So, what is play? Play is the fundamental means by which children gather and process information, they learn new skills, and they practice old ones. Play has different characteristics. During play, people are physically and mentally active. Play is something that's enjoyable, it's flexible and changing. It's focused on the process and not on the product or the results. Play often involves freedom from time. You're not worrying about when it starts, when it finishes. And when children play, they have some ability where they decide what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. In a 2007 report, the American Association of Pediatrics stated that play needs to be encouraged as an essential part of children's healthy development, and that active child-centered play is a time-tested way of producing healthy, fit young bodies. Play enhances physical skills as well as cognition, executive function, language, social skills, emotional regulation, and curiosity. There are many, many benefits of play, and these are just some of them. You can go, this is from The Power of Play, put out by an organization 0 to 3. It's a booklet they send out to parents to encourage parents to play with child, and they break it out by ages. So here they're saying these are the things that children learn through play from 12 to 24 months. From birth to 12 months, the child learns these things. And from 24 to 36 months, the child learns these things. So if you want to take a look, language skills, social skills, self-control, creativity, problem solving, all of that. In the earlier years, hand-eye, cause and effect, communication. So all of these basic things we learn through play. Now, let's take Albert Einstein. He said learning is everything else is just Can anyone here think of what those blanks would be? Just take a guess. Learning is work, everything else is just play. He said learning is experience, everything else is just imagination. Yeah. What did I say?
He did say imagination is the most important thing.
Oh, okay. And then Confucius said, I hear and I forget, I see and I might remember, I do and I understand. So what these guys are saying is that the best way to learn is by doing. And play gives us the opportunity to learn through doing. Now, here's one more quote. It's by John Ciardi, who's a poet from New Jersey, where I used to work in a library. An ulcer is an unkissed An ulcer is an unkissed imagination, but I appreciate your willingness to volunteer and answer. That's great. An ulcer is an unkissed imagination. What is imagination and why is it important? Imagination is being able to see beyond what's in front of you and to envision what might be. And if we look at this room, we have electric lights, we have a rug, we have a PowerPoint projector. All of this came about because someone had an imagination. They saw what was there and they said there must be a better way to do this. And here's an example. How many people here use Post-it notes? Raise your hand. Okay. So in the 3M company, a chemist named Spencer Silver was trying to develop a super glue, but instead he developed this glue that would come off very easily without leaving any mark, and it was a mistake. He kept trying to figure out a way to use it. He couldn't get people to get on board, but then his office mate, Arthur Fry, another chemist, sang in his church choir. And every time he used to keep his place using bookmarks, and when he opened it up, the bookmarks would fall on the floor. And he suddenly came up with the idea that you could take this glue and make Post-it notes to save your place in the hymnal and not lose your place. And now we have the Post-it note. So imagination is something that helps us create things and helps us move forward as a society. And pretend play is one of the things that helps us build that imagination and gives us chance to experience what's there and look beyond and experiment with what might be. Purposeful play is when children's potential for learning is enhanced even more than what it's there. And purposeful play is when you have play that has an ulterior motive and you get a sense of joyful completion from it. It might be happened when you explore answers to questions through hands-on interaction with children, when you build their questioning skills by asking a child certain questions when they're playing, or you enhance their understanding by key academic concepts, but without interfering with their actually playing and having a good time. Because I believe so strongly that the best way to learn is through play, I try to design all of my interactions with some kind of a playful piece to it. I designed this program, which you heard about, Mother Goose on the Loose, which is an early literacy program, and I travel around giving training workshops to people. Now, part of my training workshop is to talk about the brain research, and so people understand the theory as well as the actual program. And so when I'm talking about the brain, I want to make it understandable to people. So here we see that the brain grows the most in the first 3 years of life. The weight gain is the most. And then I have to talk about the neurons because the growth comes about by connection. So I have everyone make their hand into a neuron. So make your hands into neuron. Okay, and this is just a little example. So when a baby, okay, these are the roots. This is the axon. Over here is the cell body with the nucleus. Up here are the dendrites. And everybody, when learning takes place, a baby is born. The doctor places the baby on mommy's stomach, and ding, a connection is formed. That's called a synapse. And the water in there makes an electrical connection, and baby feels mommy's skin. Then baby smells mommy's smell. Ding, another connection is made. And then mommy kisses baby. Ding, another connection is made. Then baby nurses for mommy. Baby tastes mommy's milk. Ding, another connection is made. And then daddy says, baby, there's your mommy. Ding, another connection is made. And all of these connections form the baby's understanding of what mommy is. And as the child learns more and more, these connections keep growing, and the child's understanding of mommy keeps growing. Then we even sing a song to the tune of Where Have All the Flowers Gone that talks about all the different parts of the brain. So by the time the workshop is over, people actually remember neuron, synapse, and they might even remember some of these terms. Maybe they might even remember them a week later. And then here's one more example. I talk about the triune brain because a lot of people, when they hear about the brain, they often think that it's just the cerebral cortex, the thinking part. So again, make your hand into a brain. This part is the brain stem, and the thumb is the limbic system that goes in the middle, and the cerebral cortex goes on the top. And the cerebral cortex is the thinking part of the brain. The limbic system is the emotional center of the brain, and the brain stem is the survival function. And when we talk about a healthy child, we're talking about a child that has all three parts of the brain working together. It's not just about being smart. It's not just about knowing facts, especially when we're talking about very young children. We're talking about a child who has the cognitive part of the brain, the emotional part, and the physical health all working together. Because if we want to help develop healthy children and good citizens, we want someone who can think before they act, who can look at not just a fact, but how what I do might affect someone else. When they act, look at what they're doing. Afterwards, be able to evaluate it, reflect on it, and then use that for the way they're going to act the next time. And this involves self-regulation skills and reflection skills. So, again, the research, after I do that, it makes this much more understandable. And research tells us that children are pre-programmed to connect with the adults in their lives. And so play in the earliest years is essential, not for a child alone, but for the child with the parent. And the way the parents act with their children and toddlers can affect them for the rest of their life. If a child feels that a parent is going to be there for them, they get a sense of security, and when they're older, they're willing to go out and try new things. If they have a good sense of self, they are able to accomplish more later on. The American Library Association, which has two organizations under it, the Public Library Association and the Association of Library Services for Children, said it's so important for children to enter school ready to learn that we are going to present a outline for people of what they need to do. And first they came out with the 6 skills, which were all language related, and then they came out with the 5 practices. And they said there are 5 things that parents need to do with their children in order to help them enter school ready to learn. And those are talk, sing, read, write, and play. And although every child ready to read focuses just on the language and literacy skills, I believe that these exact same practices can be used to also develop the emotional and the social skills. Because we know that a healthy child is one that has all of those together. And it makes sense that play is in there. So we know that play is a joyful thing. And we found that when kids learn in a joyful, warm, and loving atmosphere, the experiences actually, remember this whole neuron thing, the experience are stronger experiences, stay better, and make better connections later on. So I believe there are many ways that we can add play into library programs. And I call it purposeful play. Because play on its own is someone just sees something and does it. But a lot of librarians, when we're working in the library, we have to come up with a preschool story time. And we don't just sit there and read books. We put activities in the middle of the books that are finger plays or songs or standing up activities. And we can make those into playful experiences. When we read the books, we can make them into playful experiences. And we can model for the parents what purposeful play is. So here's an idea. Mother Goose on the Loose, the program I have, incorporates many examples of purposeful play. I may take a drum, and we have something called the rum-pum-pum drum sequence, where you take the drum and you hit it and you go, rum-pum-pum, this is my drum. Rum-pum-pum, this is my drum. My name is Betsy, what's your name? And then we go around and we have each child tap their name with the syllables. And maybe they get it right, maybe they get it wrong. But what word does every child know the best? Their own name. And when you tap your name into syllables, you're breaking it into sounds. You're hearing the sounds in words. That's phonological awareness. And learning how to read is based on being able to hear the sounds in words. And then we pass out musical instruments. We might have something like bells. We could sing a song like, we ring our bells together, we ring our bells together, we ring our bells together because it's fun to do. Ring them up high, ring them down low, ring them in the middle. And so we're saying the word up high, we're physically doing it up high, and we're using a high voice. Same thing with down low. So again, we're giving the children the instruments. They have a chance to experiment with it, to feel what does it do when I shake it, what does it do when I drop it, what does it do when I hold it still. But we're extending it a little bit more to give them the words and the experience with it. Shake it very slowly, 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 as quickly as you can. So we're moving it a little bit beyond just taking the bell and going like this. And then when we play recorded music and they tap along to the music, they ring along to the music, they're learning how to listen because they're listening to the beat in the music and trying to tap along to the beat. Then we have play with colored scarves. Woo! And kids love to play peekaboo, but you can use your imagination with it as well. You can say, pretend that you are, pretend your scarf is a washcloth. Let's scrunch it up. This is the way we wash our necks, wash our necks, wash our necks. This is the way we wash our necks so early in the morning. We can pretend that they're fly swatters. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me, 'cause I belong to somebody. And then you can give the older kids, the preschoolers, a chance to use the scarves and tell you what it is. And they can pretend to be pirates. And they can pretend to be old ladies. And they just have so much fun with the imagination if you give them the colored scarf. But if you just hand it to them, it may not get there. You have to say, use your imagination. What are we going to do with this scarf? We all know that when we move, when we dance, we get our wiggles out. And we're also, though, kids learn, people learn when they're moving. And so with younger children, we can talk about different kinds of movement and do it at the same time, like, and we creep, and we creep, and we creep, and we stop. And then they're doing creep, but they're using the word creep, and so they're getting their vocabulary words from that. And freeze games are great, because if you play a freeze game where everyone has to stop, then when they're at home, the parent may need to tell the child to stop when they're doing something. And often, if you wait until the child is doing something really dangerous, you call out, "Stop!" in a panicked tone of voice, and the child thinks it's funny and just keeps going along. But if you play freeze games at home, and your child learns to stop instantly the minute you say stop, like, and we creep, and we creep, and we creep, and we stop, and you do this at home, then when you call out stop, the child will instinctively stop. Now, what I just told you is called a developmental tip, and those are often used in library programs with parents and young children. The developmental tip is a very short explanation of an activity. It explains why it is valuable, how it can be altered to be used at home for the child. So the developmental tip might be, what word do all children need to learn? Stop. So if you want your child to learn the word stop, a great way to do it is take a pot or pan at home and play freeze games with your child at home. And tap on the pot and pan, or don't even just play freeze games on your own. And then when you need it, you'll really want it. And I typically give that as a tip in my trainings. And a couple of years ago, someone came up to me and said she had been in a supermarket in a new town. She'd never been there before. And behind her came a father with his 3-year-old daughter. The daughter took one of those little shopping carts and started running across the supermarket. And the father just stood there and called out after her, "And the drum says stop!" And the girl froze, and the father nonchalantly walked up to her, and the two of them were going around. And she came to me and said this, "I know they had to have gone to Mother Goose on the Loose, because that's one of our activities, and the drum says stop." And so sometimes we don't know how we touch people, and we wonder how far our influence really goes. But clearly, if someone says and the drum says stop, they've been coming to Mother Goose on the Loose, so their librarian must have given a developmental tip to the parent that they then incorporated into their lives at home. Another thing is puppets. And puppets, kids love puppets. And puppets are just a great way to, if you can get a shy child to talk because they see the puppet, they can sing a song about the sounds the animals make. And again, it's another way to encourage them. If you have a child who's not such a big talker, if the puppet asks them a question, chances are they'll be more ready to answer the question from the puppet than they are to talk directly to you. I love using the flannel board, and one of my favorite activities is Humpty Dumpty. I have a Humpty Dumpty made out of felt and a wall, and at the end of the program, we recite Humpty Dumpty, and Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Then we invite the children to come up one at a time and pull Humpty off the wall, and everyone can clap for them for a job well done. And I tell the parents this is a great activity because it teaches your children school readiness skills. They're learning how to be patient. They're learning how to take turns. They're learning to show appreciation to each other because we clap after everyone has pulled Humpty down. We hear adults are afraid of public speaking, but here children are getting a chance to go in front of everyone else. And they're building up their self-esteem because I did it. And when you're sitting there watching these faces and they come up and they pull Humpty and everyone claps, you see how the children just feel so good about themselves. And if you want a child to achieve in school, they have to know what it feels like to feel that pride of having done something well. And a simple activity like pulling Humpty Dumpty off of his wall and having everyone clap does that. And finally, book illustration. Book illustration, a lot of times librarians focus on the written word, but they don't focus on the illustrations. But looking at illustrations is lovely, and parents can use it again as purposeful play to talk about the illustrations, to make up stories about the illustrations, to use them to play with their children. I believe that there's lots of opportunities for play in the public library. And there you can see there's Humpty over there, and there's a little child who's just waiting to come up and pull Humpty off. And when we're in the library doing our programs, we serve as models for the parents. We have parents who aren't quite sure. They want to do what's best for their child, but they don't know. And so when we play in a purposeful way, we're modeling for them how to do it. And again, I think Mother Goose on the Loose is a great way. That's my little plug. But then we also have things like preschool story time. And in preschool story time, when we sing songs, we're helping children learn vocabulary and breaking words into syllables. We can take out musical instruments, and when they're shaking the maracas, we have a song, there's a very funny song, does anyone know I Know a Chicken by Laurie Berkner? It's a sing and repeat song. And pretend you have an egg shaker in your hand, right? Okay, everybody? Oh, I know a chicken. I know a chicken. And he laid an egg. And he laid an egg. I know a chicken. I know a chicken. And he laid an egg. And he laid an egg. What kind of egg? What kind of egg? It's a shaky egg. It's a shaky egg. Shake 'em fast. And then you shake 'em fast. Shake 'em slow. What do you know? Shake 'em fast, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's really fun, and people love it. But they're also getting those words, and they're paying attention, and they're listening, and they're learning about slow and fast. And I also, when you're using a book in preschool story time, if you repeat the book more than once, or if it's a story they know, let's say Goldilocks and the Three Bears, you can play with it in other ways. So let's say we've done Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I can then be an interviewer. Hello, this is Betsy from WLIB, and I'm here to interview Goldilocks. Goldilocks, can you please tell me, what did it feel like when you woke up and there was a little bear over there?
I didn't know what to do.
She didn't know what to do. Was it frightening?
It was very scary.
And then I'm going to interview the little bear's porridge. What did it feel like when Goldilocks ate you?
It was weird.
It was weird. So here I'm going beyond actually reading the book. And you have to make sure the children already know the story. And I assumed you guys knew Goldilocks and Three Bears. But I'm using their knowledge of the story to extend it a little bit beyond. Yes, I'm playing, we're imagining, we're in a radio station, I'm doing interviews. But I'm asking them questions like, what did it feel like? So they have to go beyond themselves and experience empathy, to put themselves in someone else's place, and also to use the words to describe what it felt like, which is going back to that social and emotional stuff that we talked about earlier. When you play games, when you have someone close their eyes and you have to clap, and you clap louder or softer, is it getting hotter, is it getting colder? You're also teaching them about problem solving, about paying attention for clues and critical thinking. You can have kids act out one of the stories and make a video of it, and then afterwards show them the video of them acting out the story, and there you're building their self-esteem. And a child who feels capable, again, will enter school really ready to learn. So these ways of extending books is another way, it's a purposeful way of enhancing their school readiness skills. Now there are other activities. We took The Boy Who Cried Wolf. This is at a children's book festival. And we had kids make little sheep out of an Ellison machine and stick on cotton wool. And then after reading Rapunzel, we had Rapunzel's hairstyling salon, and the kids could come and do whatever they wanted with Rapunzel. And then if you see, after doing a program on bunnies, we had someone who actually brought a bunny in, and you can see him peeking out from in between the two books. So again, those are ways of building on the regular experience and adding much more to it. And kids love to act out stories. They love being able to dress up. They love having props. And again, it's a great way to take them beyond what's in front of them and just extend it a step further. Musical play gives many opportunities for children. There's a book called The Scientist in the Crib, where Alison Gopnik talks about children all being scientists, and their whole world is making hypotheses and testing them out. And so one of the ways we can help them learn is giving them new things to test out, and musical instruments certainly do that. And there's a lot of talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And by doing play using, why did I just forget the word? Magnifying glasses and other kinds of things, you can also take children that step further. There's a book about ants by Chris Van Allsburg, and it has these little tiny pieces of sugar in it, and to the ants it looks like this big thing. And so after you read that book, you can take out the magnifying glasses and look at the sugar through the magnifying glasses. Partnerships are a great way to help purposeful play because sometimes librarians don't have the resources to do it on their own. And right now, in the library world, there's a real big push for partnerships. At the ALS conference a few years ago, the Ohio library system talked about a partnership they had with a health agency. And they built these kits with toys in them. And then in their library program, they showed the parents how to use these toys at home and how to play with them in ways that would help build their school readiness skills. Then the Enoch Pratt Library in Baltimore, where I work, jumped on the bandwagon and they said, we want to do something too. We want to use purposeful play, and we want to push that agenda of every child ready to read with the talk, sing, read, write, and play. So they partnered with the Baltimore City Health Department, and they got a grant to go out and buy toys and make these kits. And then they hired me to write developmental tips to go along with each of the toys to tell the home health visitors who go into homes of at-risk families how to use them with the parents, to teach the parents how to play with their children, and to leave the toys in the home so they could then use them. And now, just last week, I got a phone call from a library system in Wisconsin, and they want to get kits to work with their WIC families to, again, use toys, bring toys into the home, because they find that parents are not playing with kids so much anymore. And they want to encourage parents to work with the kids and to use the toys that are available and not just hand it to the child, but to use it to extend the play. Many libraries are now building early literacy spaces. And these are areas in the library that are full of free-flow early literacy activities. There's a company called the Burgeon Group, which many libraries have hired to actually develop corners that have different activities for children. But again, remember when I talked about earlier how children are pre-programmed to connect with their parents? So the best kind of play is not just pushing the child in the early literacy space, but to get the parent to play with the child, and that's not always so easy. So one of the jobs that librarians are being asked to do is to find ways to go over and talk to the parents and kind of get the parents to engage in the early literacy activity corners with the children. When I worked at the Pratt Library, we had lots of celebrations for early Children's Book Week. We had a fairy tale festival, and we decided to create play opportunities by making a book come alive. So we used pipe and drape, those movable walls that you can create, and we acted out books. So here's one taking Where's Spot. And the kids can actually act out the book. Is Spot, they can walk over the hill there. Is he in the box? Is he under the bed? They can lift up the bed and look under there. And so they get a chance to actually act out the book. And many times parents have said to us, oh, I can do that at home. And here you can see the kids are actually doing the activities and having a lot of fun looking for Spot. And it's not really about whether or not they find Spot, but it's the fact that they're doing all these really fun activities. Like, who would have thought that labeling shredded paper from the shredder into a dog bowl could be a lot of fun? But we had kids who kept coming back and doing it over and over and over again. And in the meantime, if the parents spoke to them or if we spoke to them about what they were doing, they were getting all these vocabulary words and they were building a connection with the book. Here's another one, Rosie's Walk. And Rosie's Walk is a great book because it talks about she went around the fence, she went through the mill, she went under the beehive, and you can create this environment. You have the printed word, so the kids get to see the printed word. Even though they aren't able to read, the parent will read it for them, and they get the opportunity to play with the book and to experience it in a great way. And here you can see, indeed, they're having a great time acting out Rosie's Walk. Some parents think that when they're playing with their child, if they want to help it be purposeful play, they need to direct the child. And that is not purposeful play. We've all seen parents who tell the child exactly what to do, and that's not playing at all. And in fact, when I gave you those definitions of play, one of the people who writes a lot about play is a guy named Dr. Stuart Brown. He researched play he went into prisons and spoke with homicidal men and mass murderers. And the one thing he found out that they had in common was that they all lacked play experiences when they were children. And in one case, there was a boy who had formalized play experience. That is, his father was an athlete and pushed him all the time to compete in athletic things. But these kids hadn't had the opportunity to just express themselves through play. So if we want parents to play with their kids, we have to tell them that it's not this kind of play. It's really scaffolding like Vygotsky. So if the child is building something with the blocks, and he sees how it falls down and it falls down and it falls down, and then he finally builds a wider base, you could say, oh, I've noticed that when you build the wider base, the tower stays up more, and you can ask the kids, what else can you do? What can you do differently to keep your tower from falling down? Other parents try to help their children by always asking them everything, and they think that this academic, what letter is on that beanbag? And that takes away from the play experience as well, because there's a right or a wrong answer, and the child is afraid of giving the wrong answer. And play is not about the right or wrong. Play is a place where you can make mistakes and you can learn from your mistakes, just like those guys in the free M. It's an environment that is totally non-judgmental, where you can put yourself in someone else's feet. But if you have a parent who makes you feel that every time you play, it has to be a certain way and you have to answer the questions, it loses part of the meaning. Now, technology is here to stay, and technology is presenting a challenge. There's so much out there. We see that a lot of parents read this stuff about educational apps and they buy it for children. And raise your hand if you have seen a parent just giving the iPad to the kid or their iPhone to the kid and walking away. Yeah. And sometimes even young children. I noticed that they've now come out with this baby seat that has a place to put the iPad in. And we know technology is here to stay, but we know that just handing a device to a child is not purposeful play. And the best thing is when a child interacts, a parent and the child interact together using that technology. And a few people are dealing with this right now. There's a woman named Carissa Culver who started reviewing apps, because right now a lot of people go onto iTunes, they go onto Google Play, and they look up educational apps and they choose what they want, but those are commercial sites. So we have a few people who are going and saying, I'm going to review those apps and I'm going to write an unbiased opinion of what is really educational and what's not. And she has a website called Media Mentors. There's another librarian named Ken Campbell who's come up with this idea that librarians, children's librarians, should also be media mentors. And that our job when parents come into the libraries is not just to recommend good books for parents to read, but we can also recommend good apps. And we can also tell them what piece of technology might be good for them to use. But in order to do that, we have to be familiar with it, and we have to have good examples. Ken Campbell contacted me, a friend, actually Tess put us in touch with each other, and we were talking. She said, have you ever thought of creating an app for Mother Goose on the Loose? And I hadn't, but she put me in touch with a developer, and so if I believe that purposeful play is the way to go, I should put my money behind my words, so I created this app for Mother Goose on the Loose. If anybody is interested, it's a free app. You can download it on iTunes. It's called Feltboard Mother Goose on the Loose. And you can see these are two instances. One is where someone is going around and actually using it with parent and child in the program in the library. And here they have it screened up on the board. We take different nursery rhymes, and at first you can press an icon and hear the sound, and the child can press on one, the parent can press on the other, and they can move the pieces, like they can make Jack and Jill go up the hill. And then when you learn the rhyme, you don't have to press the icon, you can recite it together. And then you can bring other people in, so you can have Jack and Jill going up the hill and meeting the Grand Old Duke of York, who says, what are you doing up here? And Jack says, I want to be up here. And the Grand Old Duke of York says, I can have my men give you a ride. And they come and they jump on the backs of the horses and they go back down. And the idea is that this app is not just for children, but it's for parents to interact with the children. And first they learn the nursery rhyme, then they recite the nursery rhyme, and then they go beyond it and they use their imaginations to create stories. I know someone who used this with her fourth graders, and they did something called Extreme Makeover. And using the Eensy Weensy spider going up the water spout, they said, no, that's a cell phone tower. And there's even a place on there for parents where they're told what they can do at home. So once you've learned the Eensy Weensy spider, maybe you can take a towel, put it on your living room floor, recite the rhyme, and have the kid pretend to be the spider and climb up the water spout. That is purposeful play, extending it beyond what's in front of you to something a little bit more. So I believe that purposeful play rocks. And I work part-time in a children's museum now, and everything we have, you know, sometimes people look at children's museums and they say, oh, it's just a great big playground, but everything we have is really designed to help children have a chance to test out things through play, to use their imaginations, and to build their skills. And that's what we consider purposeful play. I think the mission of a children's museum and the mission of children's librarianship is very similar. We both want to help children be the absolute best they can be by providing them with the resources and sparking their interest. But the Children's Library does it mostly through books and through literacy, and the Children's Museum does it through play. But now the lines are getting very blurred because in the Children's Museum world, there's a real connection with literacy, and in the public library world, there's really this focus on play. I believe that when children play with a purpose, such as learning the alphabet and counting naturally, children form relationships, and those relationships help create the learning environment. I believe that purposeful play is essential. It gives children the play experience, but it extends and adds in elements that help build the early literacy skills, the language skills, and the social and emotional skills that will enable them to be successful in school and in life. So I think purposeful play rocks. And I think that's where I'm going to end. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yes.
What a fantastic talk. You said so much that was so meaningful. I wasn't able to actually take notes as fast as those screens were going by. And I was wondering, is there any place where we can see your slides again?
I have that problem. I like to put all the information up, but I don't like to read my slides. I can give it to Judy, and she would be happy to distribute it to whoever wants it. Is that, I mean, I didn't ask you. Is that okay with you, Judy?
It's also, your talk is recorded.
Okay.
So it'll be on the YouTube channel for all the Slays Colloquium, the MEC Colloquium recorded on the
That's all.
Barber YouTube. That's what you, yeah.
Great.
I just want, I was supposed to ask you this when you worked it out. Can you tell people about the Interlink all-day workshop with you on Mother Goose on the Loose, which is going to be held in Surrey on Wednesday, April the 9th, a week from today? I just, I guess if we go to the, has anyone registered for it yet? Because I sent it out to lots of people. If you go to, Danielle, is it on the Interlink website? Is that where, or you just got the information from me?
I think I have it in email.
But it is, what are you going to do at that workshop?
So I'm very delighted to be here in British Columbia, and I'm going to be traveling around to Prince George and Port St. John and Victoria and ending up in Surrey on the 9th. And I do a full-day Mother Goose on Loose workshop. It starts out with PowerPoint on the brain, and you already know some of that, so if you come, don't give it away. And then we do a sample Mother Goose on Loose program where everyone sits on the floor in a circle, and they pretend that they're parents with kids, and I actually run through it. Rather than telling them about it, I want them to experience it themselves. And instead of just a half-an-hour program, which it normally is, it's a full hour because I like to show how to use different musical instruments. I model a lot of different activities. After that, we have another PowerPoint on school readiness. What are school readiness skills? How can we build them? We have break for lunch. And then we play a game called Connect the Dots, where we break down Mother Goose on the Loose into the 10 sections. Oh, so what is Mother Goose on the Loose? It's different from any other nursery rhyme program because it has a structure to it of 10 different sections, and it has a secret formula of 80% repetition. It uses some material by Canadian educator Barbara Cass-Beggs. It has positive reinforcement and developmental tips built into it. So then we play Connect the Dots, where we break it into all the 10 sections, and the audience tells me what are the skills being built in each of those 10 sections. After that, I tell them how to create and play on their own Mother Goose and Loose programs using this formula of 80% repetition, and make it very simple so everybody understands. I always say, are there any questions? No questions. So then, since we learn the best by doing, everybody is asked to choose a rhyme. We have felt, we have tacky glue, and people make a flannel board piece for a nursery rhyme that they've chosen. And then we bring our chairs into a big circle, and we make sure everyone knows it's a non-judgmental environment. We're here to give everyone a chance to try out their rhyme, and so we clap after everyone does it, and they come up and do their rhyme with some kind of activity to go with it. And if they didn't have a good idea of an activity, we will brainstorm together to help them create an activity. And at the end, we sum up how can you use all of this. It's not only appropriate, although the program was created for kids from birth to the age of 2, how can you use pieces of it in your preschool story time for school-age kids. And then we end with a really fun activity, and everybody leaves feeling great about themselves and totally capable that if they should decide to do a program for babies from birth to the age of 2, they're confident with doing it. And if they're working with older kids, they have more new ideas to supplement what they're already doing well and make it even better. So that's the workshop that I do, and I'm doing one in Surrey on the 9th. Do we have more questions? Yeah.
Because we're in Vancouver and we have a really multicultural group of people who come to the library, how does second language learning fit in with Mother Goose on the Loose? So when you have people who come in that might not have English as their first language.
So the cool thing is that Mother Goose on the Loose is not a script. A lot of times when you read books about programming for young children, they give you scripts, like from week to week. But here it's a format. So let's say the body rhymes. There's a section for body rhymes where you start with the head and you work your way down. But you fill in the blanks. So I tell you, do a rhyme for the head, a rhyme for the fingers, a rhyme for the feet. But if you have kids from other countries, you can do those rhymes in other languages. Or you can invite the parents to come and tell you the rhyme in that language. And so that's one piece of it. It can be translated into any language, into any country very, very easily. The other piece is that I actually developed Mother Goose on the Loose when I was working in Israel. And I did the program there, and I had people who didn't speak any English who learned English by coming week after week to do the program. So does that answer your question? Okay. More questions? Yes.
With your app, did you have how you built in outside activities to do in the home in the app? Did you have some text or?
There's a button. There's a button on the page with everything on the right-hand side that shows a parent hugging a child. And if you press that button and hold it in, it takes you to a page with text. And there are different tabs on the top. One is for librarians, which talks about how you can use it in your library programs. And another one is for parents, and it tells you different ways that you can use it at home. And then when you first press it, it takes you to the general page, which is very clear that this is an app for parents to use with children. Now, we know that sometimes parents need a break. And sometimes you can't always expect a parent to be doing everything with the child. Sometimes it really is good to give them something to distract them. But we know that best practices say that you need to also use it with your child, to talk to your child, to play with your child, to sing with your child. Yeah.
I think this program is one of the best that's out there. I've done some research on it in my coursework, and I think it's really, really excellent. And one of the things I like about it is that it focuses so much on bringing the parents in and trying to develop that collaborative relationship between parent and child. But I see sometimes in libraries that sometimes parents come to the library and view the children's section as like a place to stash the kid while they go to something else, while they go look for books or something like that. And it's their little kind of like break time from the world. And so I wondered, like, do you have any suggestions or through your experience or anything, like how we can try to communicate to parents how important it is that they're having this time with their child, and that's the best way for them to learn the things they need to learn, without it coming across as like, I'm an expert and you're stupid, so I'm going to tell you what you're doing wrong with your child, because that's not what we want to say, but that's sometimes how people hear it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you have any suggestions for kind of how to
If the parent is coming into the program with the child, I try to focus on the positive. So you make a statement like, a parent is a child's first and best teacher. Children love to imitate their adults. So if you want your child to get the most out of this program, the best thing you can do is to participate enthusiastically. And I make sure that I have enough musical instruments. I'm going to give one to each parent as well as to each child. And if you want your child to get the most out of it, you will participate enthusiastically. And then if you have a problem with cell phones, you could say, please turn your cell phones off, and there's plenty of time to talk to your friend afterwards. If they're already in the program with the child, that means they want something to come out of it, and they're usually very receptive to that. The problem that you're talking about of them just coming to the children's room and dumping the child, that's a hard one. That's a really hard one, and I'm not sure I know the answer to that. Does anyone here have a, because, there's library rules about unattended children, and that's always something you can do. But the idea is, I guess, to have part of the reason we now have these early literacy spaces in the libraries is to entice the parents to come and stay with the child. And part of it is being friendly and being approachable. So you welcome the parent when they come in. Hi, oh, did you know we have this new space? And then if you can stick in a developmental tip there about how important they are to their child and how important, but you don't want to sound like this know-it-all. So sometimes I just simply get down and I play with the child. And if I'm playing with the child, then maybe the parent will watch what I'm doing and get the idea that they can do it too. But I don't really have the solution, I just have a few suggestions. Does anyone else have a suggestion, solution?
It is unsolvable.
Yeah. Except for the
Signage and in a difficult situation, you really do approach.
And it is, I think
parents
it's that hard balance
to
because,
discuss.
in a way, the reason we come to school and learn things, we want to have some expertise and we want to share and we want to help parents be better parents, but we don't want to set up that set of I'm assuming you have a deficit and I'm here to come save you, because that's not.
Well, I think the main thing is that we're recognizing that the parent is the child's first and best teacher. And when you tell a parent that, they're not always sure of that. And all these studies have shown us it doesn't matter if a parent knows how to read, it doesn't matter if a parent has a high school degree, that in the earliest years of life, the most important thing they can do to their child is to really just have the child feel that they're loved and play with the child. And so I think it's very empowering for the parent if you let them know how important they are in the life of their child, and not necessarily even telling them what to do, but just say, I've been reading these studies, and they all tell me that you are the most important part of your child's life, and you don't need to worry about this other stuff. Just play with them and make them feel good. And if you find a way to do that, like in the introduction or just when you're playing, it's very empowering for them. Sometimes the parents feel like, I don't have what it takes. I don't have a high school degree. And really, they don't need a high school degree. Any other questions?
When I've talked to some parents, they talk about they feel their role is to instruct and that children naturally know how to play. And it seems like the idea of playing with your children is kind of foreign to some people. I was wondering how you would, without giving the talk you just gave to us, which is astonishing. I think a lot of people are kind of surprised that they're supposed to play with their children and the value of it.
Well, that's why when we do our programs in the library, it's not just about books, but we're modeling what they can do to play. And then if we use those developmental tips, we're educating the parent why the play is important and how they can replicate it at home. You said something and I just went through my mind. Now I can't think of it. It'll come to me in a minute. Oh, yeah, no, something about that. Parents feel they should instruct.
I love that thing about what is that letter on the bean bag, because
See people doing that constantly with children.
Right.
Was-
Well, they don't. Part of it is that the parents themselves may not know how to play. They may not have had childhoods where they were playing, and so part of it is to teach them the joy in all this and to let them know that it's useful. They may not understand how important the play is, and that's where those developmental tips come in. That we need to educate them and the developmental tips that they're given in a informal tone, like that one about stop. What word do all children need to learn? Stop. So if you play freeze games at home, or even with the tapping of the drum with the syllables, so you could say when you're at home, take a pan, tap on the bottom, walk around the living room, and tap out the names of what you have in your living room. And that's a great way to teach your child phonological awareness. So you don't have to make it big and heavy. You can just use these little informal tips to help them out.
So, Betsy, you know a lot about the Canadian-based early literacy program, Parent-Child Mother Goose, which was developed for families at risk with social workers and storytellers, and has been adapted into certain public libraries by trainers across Canada. So what would you say are the major differences of direction or content between your own program and Parent-Child Mother Goose program?
The parent-child,
Philosophy or approach?
as much as I'm familiar with it, the Parent-Child Mother Goose program has a limited number of parents who come. It lasts for a limited number of weeks. It builds community during that time, and then it ends and they move on to something else. Mother Goose on Loose ideally is offered every single week, and it's open for whoever wants to come. So the focus is less on getting across a specific agenda and more on modeling for the parents. The person who's presenting the program is not a presenter, they're a facilitator. And the goal is to get parents to play and sing and talk with their children, and to the point that they don't need you there. And so you're using these other things, like you're using the bells and the colored scarves and the puppets to get them to play, and you want them to then continue those playful activities at home. And I think that's one of the big differences. And then again, because it's these 10 different sections and it uses material by Barbara Cass-Beggs. But I think the Parent-Child Mother Goose program is much more intimate, and it focuses just on people at risk. And yet we know that in today's families, we have very educated parents who are too busy to play with their children. And so we have everybody who comes to our programs. And we have the nannies and the au pairs who also may not necessarily be playing with the children. And their hope is by coming and seeing how easy it is, how fun it is, and learning how valuable it is, that they will then continue on and do it at home.
Do people taking the workshop, are they actually certified in a...
There is no certification. It's just I train people. Because I wrote a book about Mother Goose on the Loose that's a manual, anybody can get the book and go and do it on their own. So it's just I help people feel comfortable doing it. But anyone can do it. And people take parts of it sometimes and just use parts of it. They don't have to do the whole program. But they might like what we do with the scarves, or they might like the Humpty Dumpty activity, and they'll just integrate it into what they're already doing, and that's fine. My goal, while I am passionate about Mother Goose on the Loose, is really to improve early literacy in all children everywhere, and in any way that that can be done, I'm happy. Yes?
Surrey Hope Library, I think, has a reputation for having a really big focus on children with mobility, and I wonder if you have seen some key indicators or key motivations for how a Hope Library succeeds in children's program, or has a big focus on it.
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
I mean, are there, I think there are a lot of kids in Surrey, which might be a reason they have a lot of children's programming, but are there other things like just individual librarians who have a personal interest, or other kind of institutional ways to get the reason for having a great kids program at a library?
Okay. Because I've never been to Surrey, I don't know anything about Surrey. But the libraries that have the most successful programs for children are the ones that have really warm and friendly children's librarians. More than anything else, I think it's making the library a welcoming place. And you can have all the flyers in the world, you can do all the outreach in the world, but if people walk in the door and we know that children aren't perfectly well behaved, right? So if your child is running around and the librarian gives you the evil eye, are you going to come back? And if the librarian has a program, but if you're late, she stares at you, are you going to come back? And so more than anything else, it's really the atmosphere that's created there if the library is seen as a welcoming place where people are wanted, where kids are taken as kids, they're not expected to behave like 7-year-olds when they're only 2. That really is the basis on which everything else is built.
So students should take courses like we at Axlis. We have, for those who don't know, services for children, services for young adults, early literacy and family services, at-risk youth services courses. And all of you out there, they're next year. You can take them. And it really, so what do you think of that? What do you think of new librarians who haven't taken any type of education in youth services? Do you think they can jump in and, because they're warm and expressive and learn fast, do you think they can do as good a job?
It's very hard.
It's very hard to hear that. Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah.
I promise I won't interrupt.
Okay. No, a lot of library schools don't have any more courses or never had. And if you want to be a children's librarian, they teach you storytelling and they teach you children's literature and that's it. And then you go on the first day of the job and you go in there and you are totally, totally unprepared and you're flying by the seat of your pants. So, you could be warm and friendly. Yes, anyone can do anything if they have the determination and they have the right attitude. But certainly going into a place prepared makes an incredible difference. And the fact that you are at a university that has all these wonderful courses and these fabulous professors, I would say take full advantage of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, well, I see I have 2 minutes left. Does anyone have any other questions for 2 minutes? All right, well, thank you very, very much for coming. If you want to come up and talk to me afterwards, you're most welcome. And I appreciate your coming to my talk. I hope you got something out of it.